Hey, my loves, it's your girl Karen Tappin, CEO of Karen's Body Beautiful and host of the Karen Says Talk Show. We're back and we're glad you're here. It's the first Monday of the month, so I've got my beauty bubble in the building. I want to welcome back Lurie Daniel Favors, Esquire, founder of Breaking the Cycle Consulting and of Afro State of Mind Media, and Natasha Gaspard, founder and executive producer of Main Moves TV and executive of This Here Talk Show. And this month, our July guest host is Sakeenah Nzingha Kinard, brand manager and multicultural artistic director of New Day Enterprises. Welcome, ladies. One of today's burning hot topics, cultural appropriation, is on our minds. It's in the natural hair community, pop culture, and beyond. You've seen it, I've seen it, we've all seen it. One culture being praised for our very own cultural aesthetic that was once deemed other, ghetto, or inferior. You've seen the headlines, from Kendall Jenner's taking her braids to an epic level, to the more recently twisted mini buns inspired by Marc Jacobs that we all know, our Bantu knots. What are your thoughts about white folks praising hairstyles that when we wear it, it's considered offensive, makes them uncomfortable, and might just get us fired? So, what do we think about Kendall Jenner's epic braids and Marc Jacobs' models' mini buns? Mini buns, that's a new name for it? That's what we're calling it now?
Like donut holes,
mini buns?
that's what I say, mini buns. It's like little desserts on your head. Now, when you saw it, and when you first heard like the rage that people were going into about it, what did you think about it?
Well, I didn't get emotional about it. I think that it's what the next step is. I think that we're shifting a standard of beauty. And along with that shift, there will be other cultures that will adopt quote unquote black hairstyles.
But are we really shifting a standard of beauty? Because some folks, if they go to work with Bantu knots, it's going to be a problem. Some folks, if they go to work with epic braids, their boss is going to be like, oh, hell no. That's not going to fly.
Definitely, I think so. But were the twisted buns being portrayed as a style that you would go to work with? For white people. My thing is that if we are shifting a standard of beauty, if the natural hair care industry is now expanding to inspire other cultures to wear natural hairstyles, then that is the natural progression of what would happen. If our standard of beauty is going to be seen as most popular or as trendy, then it will naturally bleed out into other cultures to start wearing their hair this way. Now, do they have the proper education to do these styles? No. And I think what's inappropriate is for them to take on these styles and to not credit where the inspiration actually came from.
I don't think it's shifting of a beauty culture because they're not giving us credit for this. So it's like they created that. You know what I mean? So it's not like we are moving towards where black styles are now, seen as, oh, this is lovely or whatever, So it's something that I think that's where all this animosity or like anger comes from, is that it's not being, it's something that's being taken away and something that it's very personal to us. And as Karen is saying, if we are wearing these styles, we are being, ridiculed, we're being, demeaned, we're being
fired,
all this other stuff for wearing this. But if you're, white, I guess, and you're walking on a runway with twisted mini buns, then you're seen as fashion forward. And there's a problem with that.
We have to ask ourselves what eyes we're looking at this entire situation through, right? So, we would come to a new land fully occupied with people and say, hey, here's a land fully occupied with people. Let's see if we can go interact with these people and appreciate their land. But if I put on my white supremacy glasses, I'm going to see a land fully occupied with people and say, hey, this land's totally open for the taking. I'm going to do what I have to do in order to take it, make it a benefit for myself, and damn all the rest, right? So I think if we were looking at the cultural sharing and interchange, which I think is what you're speaking to, like the ability for cultures who are on equal footing to share and exchange and grow and expand from each other. That would be wonderful. But what we typically have is a culture who is always disempowered because of our aesthetic, because of how we look. Like that was the one reason we couldn't escape the way white people could escape during indentured service, because they looked like the slave masters. We did not. We didn't look like the indigenous people. We didn't look like the slave masters. So we were made less than because of how we look. So when you take elements of how we look and then put on your white supremacy glasses and call Bantu knots, China bumps, twisted mini buns, then and you're going to now be on the cover of magazines we could never be seen on. You're going to be able to walk into offices wearing your twisted mini honey-coated buns and that we would never be able to walk into. That I think is where there's an issue.
Buns. I actually want to, yeah, I think that's great. Now, if it was expanding, then that would mean that there would be black models wearing twisted mini buns on the runway and not white models with these styles. You understand what I'm saying? So if it is expanding, then we need to see more of ourselves in that way. And we need to be, not that we need their permission or their validation, but
we're having this conversation and a lot of people are talking about it. So obviously we are, because we just got pissed off or, agitated, annoyed that Northwest has now created, she has reignited the natural hair movement. Thank God for Northwest, who is 2 years old, that I am natural.
Yes.
And we are all natural.
Yes.
Because she
For
made
decades, we've all been natural. We've got like almost half a century of natural hair amongst us. But thank God for the 2-year-old.
Right, and her mommy, this is a powerful family. Her mommy brought big butts to the forefront. So for all you big butt ladies out there, it's okay now.
Right.
It's all right.
That's the issue.
So that's the issue.
It doesn't get a stamp of approval until it's been whitewashed and honey-coated in the mini bun.
Yeah.
I could care less that Northwest is our new leader. And if I want a bigger butt, I really need to aspire to look like Kim K. I'm not really concerned with what the dominant culture's thoughts are about my hair or my butt so I don't look to them. I don't get upset when they say that Northwest is our boss and so why are we getting so upset when other people why should they regard us highly?
I think it matters. I think because it matters in a way that we have no control over. So, and I also think that it matters in the way that we think about ourselves. Because of how we've been marginalized, because of how we look, we've taken those ideas onto ourselves. And that is the problem, and we're perpetuating it within ourselves. I think that if it didn't mean anything, then it wouldn't mean anything. Like, who cares? They could wear all the styles in the world. They can come there with like long poetic justice braid. Like, it wouldn't matter. But I think it does matter, actually.
It's funny you mentioned poetic justice braids. Like, I'm remembering this scene from when I was like on my way to high school, and we're on the buses, when there wasn't like yellow buses, like city buses. So public transportation, we're on our way from school, like going to the mall, and a white girl who went to our school, who had just come back from some exotic vacation, she comes back with these long braids, blonde extensions, like wasn't her hair, it was extensions. And clearly she had been sitting on somebody's melanated beach getting her hair done by black women who know how to do hair, and she comes back to school. The sisters on the bus let her have it. It was, who do you think you are? This is that and the other. Yes. And I'm thinking, oh, it's about to go down. And the girl goes, wait a minute. Your hair, speaking to a girl who had a perm, does not grow out of your head like that. I know your hair, speaking to a girl who has a weave, does not grow out of your hair like that. If you can try to look like me, what is so wrong with me trying to look like you? And that, now here, this is the thing. I didn't have any answers in that moment. I'm still kind of fleshing this out a bit, but it always stuck with me because the sisters who were getting on her didn't have a response and didn't have an analysis for why they were trying to look like her and why it was inappropriate for her to do the same. So I think getting back to your point, Sakeenah, about like with proximity is going to come more exchange, right? There's going to be more sharing of the culture. And I think what you were saying, Natasha, really hits it on the head. It doesn't have the same weight when we're doing it. We don't have the same power to be mini bun, honey coated, whatever, as someone else does when they're taking it on and trying it on almost like a dress that you could take on and discard because it's not something that is naturally from you. But I think that that's important because that is a complication to the question I think we really have to think about. It doesn't mean the same thing, and we're not equals. I don't want to suggest that there's any false equivalencies here, but I do think we need to consider that.
I don't think it's that we're not equal, because they can really wear their hair straight and then decide to get some texture and wear it curly if they wanted to. I think it's more so not equal where they are not pressured to wear their hair a certain way.
That's what I meant.
You know,
that's what
we're
I'm saying.
pressured to wear our hair a certain way.
So the pressure is not equal. They have no pressure. All the pressure is on us, basically.
To look like them.
Right.
But is that shifting?
No.
I think
shifting it.
I think that the pressure is shifting because the natural hair care industry is that powerful to do that shift. There are millions of people that have shifted the way that they want to care for themselves, and that has affected the market and the trends and the media, and now it's moving forward to the next step.
So you're saying that the hair piece, the hair part of this conversation, is shifting so that white people are now feeling pressure to wear their hair texture?
Yes.
You think so?
I think I need some supporting evidence.
Did you see?
Where did you get that from?
What article was that? Where one of the bloggers, I saw a white blogger that was trying to texturize her hair.
Yeah.
And the black bloggers like attacked her about it. You know, why are you texturizing your hair? We shouldn't be seeing that or something. And I was just like, well,
yeah, that's a little extreme.
I mean,
think
white people perm their hair and they make it curly.
I don't even know if perms are what they're doing now. They're trying to get their hair bone straight. I mean, I meet so many.
You talking about white women or black
women?
Okay.
I've met so many women. I went to school with white people just for 13 years, and they did nothing but try to get their hair straighter and straighter and straighter.
But that was then.
Okay.
Now.
You trying to say I'm old? You trying to say I'm old? That's another conversation. I'm just saying.
We're in the same age bracket. I remember when.
No, we're not.
Okay. Are you still in your 30s?
I am almost 40. How about that?
But you're still.
I still am in my 30s.
But still, I'm just saying, like, now white people are starting to braid their hair. Now they're starting to want to be curly like Rachel Dolezal. You know, like we're starting to see curls.
But she didn't want to be curly.
Okay, but
we have to break for a commercial.
Okay, we'll break.
We'll continue on the flip. I know you're watching at home are an opinionated bunch, and we want to hear what you have to say. So tweet us your questions and comments to @KarenSaysShow. Make sure you use that hashtag as well as Beauty Bubble in your tweets. Join in the conversation. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Are you natural, transitioning, or relaxed and want your hair to be healthy and more manageable? My name is Karen Tappin, CEO of Karen's Body Beautiful. Is your hair dry? Try my line of nourishing natural products for the whole family. Be naturally chic. Visit karensbodybeautiful.com for where to buy.
Lurie Daniel Favors, attorney, speaker, author, and creator of the Afro State of Mind Project, challenging the way we think about hair, skin color, race, and ourselves. Afro State of Mind, it's more than just hair. Visit afrostateofmind.com today.
Okay, so we're back. Is the term natural hair synonymous with black women? Do we own that? Do others have to back it up?
I would say for as long as I've been in the natural hair community, that's what I would say it is. And that's how I identify with the term natural hair. It's natural hair, I feel, is like an umbrella term that includes kinky, curly, wavy, did I say coily? Coily. And, you know, everything in between. So, and also natural hair for me means not processed chemically, not processed with heat.
So chemically, does that include color? Are you trying to say that you're a natural Are you trying to?
Am I a purist?
Okay.
Okay, as long
she's getting riled up.
I know we have an expert here who's gonna give us her opinion, but I think as far as like if you color your hair, are you not natural? No, I don't think so. I think if it changes the texture of your hair, then your hair is not in its natural state anymore, and that's just a fact. But I'm not gonna say banish you from the natural hair kingdom. No, I'm not gonna do all that.
And so this is where you have to really look at what the term means.
Okay.
Because as our industry expands and grows, on a global scale, you have to really look at how do other people look at the term natural when you say I'm natural, or this is the natural hair community. When you describe hair, you're going to describe it by its texture, you're going to describe it by its color, or you're going to describe the density of it, the volume of it, all these different things that categorize what hair is, right? And then you're going to talk about, oh, that hair color looks this way, or that hair texture curls that way or is straight that way. When you're using the term natural, it is associated with whether you're going to use a chemical product or not. And so we're not going to use chemicals anymore, so you have a natural process as to how you take care of your hair. So I feel like Black people, we use that term as a form of a crutch to feel honored about what we are doing in that process. But if we learned how to take care of our hair as an adolescent, we probably wouldn't use that term as strongly as we do.
I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in Europe. My parents are military, and we spent some time here when I was younger, but primarily my growing and formative years were in Germany. White people, people of other races, don't have terms to describe their hair because their default statuses, right? So if I'm a white girl, I don't have to describe my hair. It's hair. This was wool, right? So we weren't even allowed to call this hair. It's very recent that even being able to have hair on our head referred to as hair by the broader society. In our, that's a very short time that we've had that privilege, right? So I feel like for the natural hair community, it's a form of resistance to say, I am not going to just wear my hair the way it grows out of my head. I'm going to wear my hair the way it grows out of my head in a world where I'm told that everything about that is wrong. Everything about that is inaccurate, and everything about that is going to work against me. It's going to inhibit my ability to get married. I'm not going to be able to get a man or woman. I'm not going to be able to have a happy relationship. I'm not going to be able to get a job because I'm wearing my hair the way God programmed it to grow out of my head. So I don't think anyone who chooses to go that route is calling themselves part of the natural hair community because of a form of shame. It's really a way of saying, I'm going to make a choice to look the way I was programmed and genetically ordained and designed to look, as opposed to buying into the idea that I have to look like you who define what hair is, right? You who define what beauty is. I don't have to look like you, act like you, talk like you in order to be and fulfill the purpose that God sent me here to fulfill. So I think that white people aren't having these conversations about what to call their hair because white privilege allows their hair to just be hair. It defines what hair is, and we are saying natural in opposition to that. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that's why it's necessary to have that term natural hair?
I don't even think that term, I'm not tied to those particular words together, natural hair. I mean, sometimes I'm a natural vegan, sometimes, it's the word to me, but I think the idea, it's important for us to be able to have a label that says, because our hair has been politicized, we didn't ask for that. We didn't ask to be taught that our hair was wrong. We didn't ask to be taught that light skin had a value that dark skin didn't. So we have to now create a space of resistance where we can carve out something that is okay for us to have.
Okay, but I'm not saying not to use the term. I'm just saying to use it in a different context.
So let's talk about Sarah, the white blogger who was profiled on Curly Nikki's site. There was an uproar. People were pissed because she's talking about her natural hair. She's being profiled on a site that we thought catered to Black women with natural hair, when I think a lot of people didn't realize that the site really caters to all textures and races. It's not specific to Black women with natural hair. So it's like Black women who with natural hair are so passionate, they've, terroristically held, naturallycurly.com hostage to their own specific needs and wants and desires and perceptions. There were thousands of comments, and people went all kinds of ways. And Ebony got involved, And then Curly Nikki responded in a very interesting way.
I think it's something that is universally kind of subliminally known amongst Black women, that we need that level of support, and we're all on the same page when we're talking amongst each other, and in terms of even how we use the term natural hair. But the internet is global, so everybody is looking at this, and if somebody has a site that just says naturally curly, there will be people of other cultures looking at this site that says naturally curly and is looking at, oh well, my hair is naturally curly and I'm going to look at this for inspiration. So when they feature somebody that is of another culture that wants to talk about their experience, we may have a little bit of an outburst, but is that their fault or is that our fault? Whose fault is that?
Why would it be fault? Like, why would it be our fault?
We get an emotion because we had that thought process that they were only talking to us.
And why wouldn't we have that? Why wouldn't we think that a Black blogger who started this blog talking about natural hair and her own journey of acceptance, she looks sort of like us, right? And a lot of the women who flock to her site look like her.
But it's not her site anymore.
Well, it's not her site anymore, but she started it off that way, right? So I'm looking at the intention behind the blog. We were under the impression I included, that this blog was catered to women of color. Is it wrong?
I don't think it's wrong. I think that people were just misinformed. And so if you understand where the whole conversation is coming from, who is owning this conversation, who is directing the conversation, then you should, in my opinion, you should be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
I think part of the challenge, though, is that this really looks at marketing, right, and what tactics are used to tap into audiences until they're no longer useful, right? Because we spend money in the beauty industry, right? So we are product junkies. We admit it. We have songs about it. So we're going to be an attractive market for people. So targeting black people, building your base with black women who you know have a language, have a way of discussing a texture of hair that is present in the white community that isn't discussed the same way we discuss our hair, right? And by that texture, I'm talking about curly in general. When you have this web space that is built on the backs and experiences of black women, and then you open it up, there is a sense of betrayal, right? There's a sense of, now that we're clear, we were misinformed in thinking that it was a black space.
Right.
But part of my questioning is, was that misinformation or was that a shift in marketing tactics and we just didn't get the memo?
The reason why I brought up Naturally Curly and I didn't talk about Curly Nikki is because the folks, Michelle Breyer, owns, she's the president of all that. She started Naturally Curly years and years ago, catering to white curly hair. Yeah. Right. And then here comes black women with our natural hair revolution just taken over her site. And so now she's, expanded her conversation to include the whole range of textures.
But then this brings us back to the definition of how we see the term natural hair. It's how we see the word natural hair and how other people see the word natural hair.
So there's a disconnect there.
There's a disconnect. And when we say natural hair, it means something totally different. If a Spanish person says, my hair is natural, they're more so talking about the color of their hair because they don't have to perm their hair or to relax their hair to be a certain way.
Are you talking Spanish or Latin American? Because Spanish from Spain is Europe, but Latin American, they're black.
I'm saying Latin American more so, but I mean, and I'm not going to say, and I'm really trying to be politically correct and not say, different terms to describe people, but I just want to acknowledge that black women use the term natural hair in a context that is way off from what it actually really means. And so as our industry expands, it's going to be misunderstood and misinterpreted.
I don't think anybody else is using natural hair the way you're suggesting that we should. Like, I don't think anyone else is using the term natural hair unless they're a white blogger appearing on a space typically identified for black women. They're not having conversations about if their hair is natural or not because, again, their hair has been the definition of what is appropriate for hair.
But does natural hair mean curly off the bat? To a black person, they would automatically think, oh, my hair is curly. But to a white person, they wouldn't necessarily think, oh, my hair is curly.
But a white person wouldn't think being white is a race. White people don't think being white is a race. They think that they're just human. The same way they don't. We're
not going to go there.
No, I mean,
that's the difference.
That's the difference when you're defining something from an empowered space versus being the one who's typically lacking power to define your own experiences.
And actually, because I went to school with white folks for such a long time, when I remember when they talked about their hair as natural, they meant not colored.
Yeah.
Like not,
Yeah.
And so that's how they use it.
Because that's a chemical process that they use a lot. We use a chemical process that straightens our hair. They use a chemical process that colors their hair. I think what we are missing is to acknowledge our culture. That's what I think we're missing because we have been taught to degrade ourselves. So being in this industry a long time and growing up in this industry, I've really been sitting back and watching like, okay, so are we really ready? Are we really ready to wear natural hairstyles more than a twist out? Are we really ready to wear braids and locks and cornrow our hair and wear our Bantu knots to work and feel professional? Do we have that confidence within ourselves?
No.
Do we have that confidence within ourselves to say, this is the way my hair is and this is the way I'm presenting myself to the world?
Not
because
yet.
When
She's saying
not yet, but I think we're coming along the curve, and I think that because our industry has been powerful enough to affect the product industry, that I'll say the others or other cultures are starting to recognize that our industry is shifting a beauty standard. And so I would say that now when we're seeing like Kylie Jenner and all of the different celebrities of other cultures that want to wear their hair in natural hairstyles, they are not going to associate it with a cultural aesthetic because we haven't done it.
I see what you're saying. It just
You understand?
Okay, got it.
We haven't done it.
Okay.
So if we don't do it and they do it, is it okay for us to get mad at them because they did it before we did?
What do you mean we haven't attributed it to a cultural aesthetic?
I'm saying that we need to start wearing our natural styles to work as a professional look and feeling confident about it and being able to claim that this is an African aesthetic and these styles come from somewhere.
So you're saying that we should be boldly, and not just if my hair is natural and kind of looks like my curly haired white friends, right? But if it's natural and not flowing in the wind and big and poofy and doing all of that, but when it's tied up on your head in a Bantu knot and you're completely defying the white aesthetic of beauty, now that, my sister, I can support.
I can support that.
I mean, look at my hair. My hair is cornrowed and I have Bantu knots in the back and I have twists on the side and there are curls and everything. And I've been natural my whole life. And I've always walked into, I went to a white school too, and it was all white. And I was the only black person. I had locks down my back and they respected me because that was the only way that they could deal with me. I wasn't told like, oh, you can't do that or you should not, or it was like, what? This is who I am. What do you mean I can't? Do you know how to do my hair? You don't you? You don't. So let's just continue on. And I think that if you come into a room and you present yourself a certain way and you're clear about who you are and what your cultural background is, that there is nothing else to do but respect you. Generationally now, we have had to conform to a white standard. We have to conform to a Eurocentric standard of beauty. So that psychological shift is what needs to happen once people say, oh, I'm going to make this transition to quote unquote go natural. And my question is, go natural, so you are naturally what? What are you naturally? You are naturally an African American, or you're naturally a part of the African diaspora? Like, we need to start claiming our cultural aesthetic and claim the places that we are from.
Now that's an Afro state of mind right there.
We have to have that Afro state of mind.
So how does that tie into the broader concept of a cultural appropriation? And so that means that if we accept ourselves, if we accept our styles as being African, right? So then if Kim Kardashian comes out with cornrows and beads and stuff, what does that mean?
If she wants to wear cornrows, that's
it doesn't
fine.
matter.
No, go ahead, wear cornrows. Everybody should wear cornrows. We will have people of all cultures braiding, twisting, and locking their hair, and the Japanese are definitely doing it.
But here's why I don't think
know?
it'll make a difference with us. During apartheid, black people outnumbered white people. During slavery, we outnumbered white folks on plantations 8-1 in some states. The numbers didn't matter, right? Because the power was still held by people who were in power for reasons that had nothing to do with numbers. If every white woman in the world, in the world, began cornrolling their hair, jerry curling their hair, like two-strand twists in their hair, we're still gonna have little black girls in Cleveland wishing they had long straight hair. Because them shifting their standard doesn't necessarily impact us shifting the way we see our own beauty or the lack thereof.
So how do we shift that? Because that's a psychological issue that we need to address.
Nicki Minaj needs to go natural. And all of our problems.
Well, she actually took out her natural hair because she got some Indian in her family. She got Indian in her family though. And then the other thing is
Indian yaki don't count.
Indian yaki, but the other thing is that celebrities, their argument is because they have to be on the high camera and they're on tour and they have to do so much that they need a quote unquote weave or protective style.
How come they don't wear the kinky protective style?
This is true.
Well,
I agree. But Beyonce did it once. She had her afro when she was in the movie. When she was in that movie.
The problem. It's when celebrities.
But the thing is that not African? It's to wear a wig.
Of course it is.
It's not African. To wear a weave, is that African? Because underneath that weave, you're braided.
Yeah.
underneath, and your hair is cornrow.
Not when your weave is designed to look like Miss Ann.
Yes, it is. But there are all different
Right,
kinds of ways. There are all different kinds of ways to design our hair, and we, black people, we have mastered it.
Right, but wearing
We have
a wig
mastered it.
is one thing. Wearing a wig that looks like my best little white friend Amber Ely, very different,
Very
right? Wearing
different.
a weave is one thing, because black people, we are magical with our hair. But if I'm only going to be like the lawyers in Kenya who only wear weaves and wigs that look like the European hair, right? That's that white wig. You may have seen them in pictures where they have on the white wig, dark black skin, white wig as white as these vases, and that's. So it's a wig, but it's a wig designed to convey that they are superior because they have a legal system more closely aligned to the European powers that colonized them. So wearing a wig, wearing a weave isn't the issue. It's, am I going to be, like, so Michael Jackson may have vitiligo. He may need to have whiter skin. He may need creams, what have you. Why all your children don't look black? Why all the kids you adopt have, what have you?
We are acknowledging that there is a psychological shift
Absolutely.
that has to be addressed
Yes.
amongst the black community or the Pan-African diaspora all the
Absolutely.
way across the board. And I think that the natural hair care industry has shifted that, and that's the focus that needs to happen for where we need to go. Because if we don't address it, we're going to constantly have these emotional outbursts every time something new happens. And it's like something new is happening and we are moving forward, but what direction are we moving to?
Well, how do we start that? And because I feel like, you know, the natural hair community has been around for a while. Like we had the old generation, like you said, we have the new generation. And I feel that within the community, there's still this back and forth of, you know, texture discrimination, and one texture is preferred, you know, over the other. So even within our own community, we can't seem to get on the same page.
Because we're still stuck at a twist out. There's nothing wrong with a twist out, but that's not the only style that you can wear. I think that for people that transition, that's what's popular right now as a standing trend. If the goal is to attain this texture rather than taking care of my hair naturally,
Got you.
then you're still going to be stuck at this texture once you transition and did this trendy thing. Then you're missing the point.
And that's why I think that it's so important to highlight the fact why people go natural in the first place. And I think that also, I think going back and forth, like when you transition and you go back to relaxer, you transition, you just can't stick with it. I always ask, why are you going natural?
Watch the movie The Book of Negroes, for example. I say it's like Roots because it presents her prior to slavery, before she's captured. You see what her life was like in Africa before she is put on these slave ships. And I watched this movie with the Awesome Girls program, and one of the things that we always do is the first time she sees a white person, you see the fear in her eyes, right? She's not looking at him and saying, ooh, I need my hair to do that. Or, oh, my skin should do like that. That's what I've been looking for with all the other women in my village. We were hunting around for a magical juicer berry to make our hair turn straight. That's not happening. Our kids need to know that prior to being put on a ship run by white people and put on a plantation run by white people who had to teach us to hate our hair and how we look in order to make money off of us. Like, until you know that, when my 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old girls know that there was a time that we didn't think that. For hundreds of thousands of years, nappy was in. Like Bantu knots, China bumps, honey-coated sugar mini buns, whatever you want to call them. That's what we were doing. And we need to recognize and know that something happened to make us think that this was wrong, because we didn't always feel that way. We didn't always think that way. Little girls didn't always think their skin had to be a certain shade. Black boys didn't think their girls needed to have hair flowing down their back in order to be attractive and beautiful. And it wasn't until we had a psychological shift for someone else's monetary gain that we began to think that. And when girls see that, the light comes on. Now, they're not necessarily going to cut out their weave tomorrow, and I tell them, don't you dare come home and have your mother call me and talk about, you told my daughter to take out her perm. I'm like, that's not what this is about. But it is about knowing that something was taken from us and something happened that was wrong, and that we have to deal with that, because a lot of us just think Martin Luther King freed the slaves and I got bad hair.
I think that the acknowledgement of culture in the midst of our hair care is what is going to continue this natural hair care community.
Absolutely.
How do we do that? How do we begin to do that?
I think it starts with the curriculum and with the stylists, because the stylists are the ones that set the trends. There was a stylist that did that person's hair with the twisted mini buns, and who taught that stylist how to do that? Where did he get his inspiration from? Now, whether he acknowledged where he got the inspiration from or not is one thing, but who taught him how to braid? He's clearly not going to braid a black person's hair. He's going to braid a white person's hair. Yeah, it's a white stylist. He's a Redken stylist. But he's not braiding black people's hair because he doesn't know how to braid our hair.
Yeah.
He's braiding a white person's hair. And they're going to continue to do white people's hair that way because that's what the new trend is. But because the stylists start the trends. Now, I taught a class at the International Beauty Show last year at IBS. And it was labeled, how do you treat someone who's addicted to a beauty standard?
Wow.
Because we're addicted to a beauty standard from a certain extent. And even once we transition and we have a Eurocentric mindset and we transition to a curly hairstyle lifestyle, we're still going to associate our styles a certain, we're still going to be reaching for that texture instead of acknowledging how many different styles we can do with this texture or what is actually capable of happening with this texture. And the only way you can really acknowledge that is by acknowledging the cultural aesthetic of how do these type of people take care of their hair, and then it goes into indigenous cultural styles.
So we need
because
our
they
own
come
standard
from
of
somewhere.
beauty.
We need our own standard of beauty, and that's why I've been coining this term multicultural beauty or cultural beauty. And I know that when people hear multicultural, they're like, "Oh my God, no, I don't want to." It's like, okay, people of the African diaspora. There are how many countries in Africa? Each one of those countries have different styling techniques as to how those people did their hair. Whether they're Kenyan, whether they're Eritrean, whether they're Nigerian, whether they're from Mali, you know, and then there's Polynesian styles of braiding, there's Mexican styles of braiding, there's Dominican styles of braiding, there's all different cultural styles of braiding. So if we say, you know, this is going to be a natural hair care movement, then we have to acknowledge all the indigenous cultures that have different techniques of natural styling, because then that expands us on a global scale.
Yeah.
And it took a while for people to hear that because we have so many different psychological bubbles over us in terms of what's right, what's wrong, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what we need to do to stay in this cubby hole to be accepted. I need to stay just like this. And my hair needs to go straight.
Don't
and
think
over
black
and
thoughts.
down.
Don't breathe a black breath.
Don't think that curly thought. You know, I have to stay straight. But we are growing, and so that's why what I meant by where are we going with this? Are y'all ready to say African? Are you ready to really acknowledge
when I use
it?
the word Afro textured hair on stage, sometimes I see people like get
Cringe.
uncomfortable and cringe in that moment.
When they have to say nappy-headed black girl, like that's part of the title of my book, they're like, why nappy? Like, it's just a nappy. It's just the word is just so. And I'm like, because if I said curly, that's not what that cover picture looks like. Karen, if I were to say your hair is curly to anyone who did not know you and then they met you, you would cut me. But if they met you.
I'm kidding.
But if they met you, they'd be like, I thought you said her hair was curly. That's not curly. It's something
More like
else.
nappy.
Right. And so, yeah, nappy has a negative connotation, but it's the only word that accurately describes what I'm talking about when my hair is doing that.
It's kinky. It's coily. It's kinky and it's coily.
I never like the word kinky.
Why?
Because it's a double entendre.
You're not kinky?
Oh.
I mean, you know,
want to talk about
whether
that?
I am or not, with the husband.
It's coily.
Coily. Coily can work. Coily is a newer term. I don't feel like I've heard that a lot.
Coil.
Coily?
Yeah, I didn't hear that a lot
Or
when
we
I
can say
studied
it is a
natural.
natural. It's a natural helix-shaped texture. Because it
Now,
is a
tweet
helix.
that. That's all your
It
140
is
characters.
a helix shape.
I know, right?
That's all
You know?
140 characters right there. Whereas nappy, hashtag.
So we can say
And don't let us start talking about the melanin in it that makes it different.
Melanin. It makes space.
Yes. The melanin in the hair texture actually creates something called a medulla inside of the cortex that is unique to Afro textured hair.
So copy that, Sarah.
Look at that.
Not
Wow.
going to. Yeah.
It's deep.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Deep.
our hair, you can't just say, "Oh, I got natural hair." It's like, no, I have a helix-shaped texture, or you know, you talk about the
So that's
texture.
not-
It is what it is. And I mean, people want to say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about texture," but it's like, yeah,
Why not? Why do you think people don't want to talk about texture?
because then it's like, "Oh, well, you have to define my texture," and it's like, no, you need to define yourself. Like back here, I got some Euro back here, I got some Asian over here, I got some this.
kitchen
You know, I mean, we are a mixed people. You know, like your hair bounces the way it bounces because of how many different cultures in your background, in your bloodline. Just because you're acknowledging all the different cultures in your bloodline doesn't mean that you're negating your blackness. It's more so acknowledging how black I am. You know, it's like black means to encompass all colors.
That's true.
Right? So.
And white is the absence of color.
Exactly. So, I mean, we have to start acknowledging our culture moving forward in the essence of how we style our hair, because there's a plethora of styles to do and it can all look very professional.
As I hear you talking, I'm looking at your style, and I'm thinking that when most women go natural, that's not a style they're often thinking of. They are thinking about the flowing twist out. And for political reasons, I think that maybe because we kind of still want that Tracee Ellis Ross kind of natural. We want that. We don't want natural. We want natural. But I'm thinking about, as I'm looking at your hair, it is a gorgeous hairstyle. And I don't know a lot of natural women who would be comfortable with a hairstyle that's close to the head, that has three-dimensional bumps, right? So mini buns, honey-coated, whatever, or China, whatever you want to call them. And certainly would not necessarily feel comfortable doing that in work, because it is clearly saying this is an African type of style, whereas my twist out is a little bit more for depending on the texture, depending on how big, depending on humidity in the air, and if it grew from the time you took it out in the morning, it's a little bit more socially acceptable.
So we need to ask ourselves, why do we think that? Where did that come from?
Aminata Diallo could tell you.
Where did that come from?
Right.
And how do we address it moving forward? You know, because some people will look at cornrows and associate it with childhood. They associate natural hairstyles with childhood because when we got to a certain age of maturity, you were walked through the indoctrination of straightening your hair. And then straight hair was associated with maturity. And we didn't have, you know, all of these blogs back in the day. We didn't have all of these instructional tools back in the day to learn how to take care of our hair. So now we have a whole nother generation of young girls and boys moving forward that have this information. They're not going to have the same ideology or the same perspective about themselves, because they didn't have to go through that level of discrimination, because that's what we're doing now. But we still have to keep that in mind moving forward and keep going. Like, okay, I did my twist out. Okay, I'm natural now. Okay, now what? I'm naturally what? Okay, how did those people take care of their hair? Oh, they did, this is what the indigenous practices were for my people. Okay, this is how I want to present myself in the world as a person of this quote unquote diaspora. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, because now that term is changing. You know what I'm saying? In terms of calling ourselves black or are we black? Are we African American? Well, what are we? You know, but moving forward, I can say my people are from the Caribbean, my people are from South Carolina, and those people were from this West African region. And these are the different ways that those people took care of their hair. And you know, there are a plethora of styles that are beautiful. So how do we move forward with that, with honor and respect for ourselves?
As you can see, this is a huge topic and we've barely scratched the surface. I want to thank my Beauty Bubble co-hosts, Lurie, Natasha, and Sakeenah. And as always, if there's a story or idea or issue that you think we need to cover on the Karen Says Talk Show, please send an email to info@karensbodybeautiful.com.